MERLIN stands for Minority Ethnic Role Models for Learning and Inspiration. It's a business in the community programme. Business in the community has more than 850 companies in its membership. It works to promote responsible business practice. MERLIN's aim is to inspire and raise aspirations of Black, Asian and minority ethnic young people by introducing adults of similar ethnic background who would serve as role models and inspirational examples.
I've met with great successful people who have helped motivate me. For example, I was once told the sky isn't the limit. Past sky is space and space goes on forever. And that you can achieve anything as long as you work hard.
In this DVD, we will meet 3 Afro-Caribbean role models.
Oh, so I'm going to see you again.
Nathaniel works for the Ministry of Defence Police. He's part of a 3,000-strong force whose job is to guard some of the most sensitive military sites in the country. The police force does not attract many recruits from Black and ethnic minority people. For Nathan to change this is the challenge.
Everybody always blames an organisation, but I think that we need to encourage people from my own background, my own community, that, you know, the only way we can change it or to make it even better is to come and join and to be supportive, and that's the only way you're going to become a diverse organisation.
Nathan grew up in Peckham, South London, and went to local schools in the area.
Growing up, I did, if I'm honest with you, ran around with a lot of bad people or bad kids, as well as the good kids. And at some stage in my life, I decided, look, I'm going to have to do something good with my life, because if not, I'm going to end up either probably selling drugs or possibly in prison.
Nathan got on with his education, but it was the Stephen Lawrence murder that made him join the police.
My thoughts were is that if you're going to change an organisation such as the police service, then it's better to change it from within than to be on the outside and trying to, you know, pursue it that way. And that was one of my ideologies, and I decided that's when I'm going to become a police officer. I'll give it a go, which once again was another frightening thing, because that takes a lot of encouragement, that you come from a background where, you know, what was the terminology? Babylon, pigs, you know, 5-0. You don't join any of those. You know, if you do, you'll sell out to your own kind.
Having started his training, he had to fit into the culture of the institution. He nearly gave up.
It's isolation. There was nobody in my class at the time who understood. You know, so you couldn't have relations with them because they didn't know where you was from, they didn't know what you was up to, didn't know what you was going through or what you have been through.
Nathan did not give up. He persisted and carried on. And now, 5 years later, he has his sights set on moving on.
That is my ambition, to be Chief Constable. It does take time, it takes a lot of hard work, and then also you've got to hope that doors are going to be open for you on the way, because there are doors that are closed, that are locked, there's barriers, and don't get me wrong, there are people out there who don't completely agree with the diversity message. What I would say to all my colleagues regardless is that I'm proud to be a police officer. It's enjoyable and I want to work as hard as possible along with everybody else and move as far up the ranks as possible. As far as Chief Constable, and if I make Commissioner, fantastic.
My job is Director of Connections, responsible for the distribution of electricity throughout the southeastern part of the UK.
Patrick Clarke is one of the few people from an African Caribbean background who has reached the top of the corporate ladder.
The big buildings you see going up, the big towers, 2012 Olympic Park, small dwellings, large dwellings, all that's under my responsibility. I look after about 1,200 people, plus a similar amount of contractors, and it is the largest business of its type in the UK.
For Patrick, the journey to the top has been long and difficult, starting in Jamaica, where he was born and where he lived for the first 8 years of his life.
I was one of those children who were left in the Caribbean and who were sent for, which is a term most parents use. I'm going to send for my child. And I joined them in the UK some 8 years after I was born. They were pretty much estranged as parents because those early formative years didn't really exist with them. So it was very difficult to adjust to both them and the country.
Patrick went to school in Brixton, where he hung around with his mates and didn't concentrate on studying. But a turning point came when he was nearly 17.
There was definitely a turning point in my life when I felt that I've got to make a difference, I've got to change. And that was when I started doing some additional tuition after school with an English teacher called Mr. Turner, who taught me maths and English, and I passed. I passed it with flying colours, and that told me that actually I'm quite special. Actually, I'm quite bright, and there's something good about me. And from that day onwards, I've never looked back academically, or I've never looked back in my career.
He went on to qualify as an electrical engineer and rose up the management ranks.
Maybe I was a bit naive to some of the racism around me in my early career because I just ignored a lot of it and just carried on. But when I look back now, yes, I can see there's obviously times when I would have been disadvantaged, when quite clearly I was the best candidate. And it wasn't just the best candidate for the job. Racism doesn't just come during the time of interviews or promotion. So for certain, it existed. But the things that's motivated me to get to where I've got to in my career, it's been related to things in my upbringing, in my early years in this country, my years in the Caribbean, the difficulties that I faced, and that's given me an attitude that says never give up, never take no for an answer, and prove people wrong. That's my mantra. I say that again, never give up, never take no for an answer, and prove people wrong. And those three things has caused me to realise I can do whatever I want in this world. Everything's possible.
Diesel is a well-known fashion brand. The man responsible for its marketing and advertising is Scott Morrison. Brought up in Preston, Lancashire, he won a scholarship to a private school.
My mum always used to say to me, you're going to have to work harder than a lot of the people in your class, which was a good motto for me to live by, because, you know, I did work harder. You know, I've worked hard all my life, and it's probably an ethic that stuck with me, you know, from being a child.
It was at school that Scott developed his passion for advertising.
I grew up when the big adverts were on TV, you know, 60-second adverts, and TV was the only place that you could see them. You know, you couldn't see them on YouTube or the internet, so it was a really big thing. And, you know, you get 10 million people watching a TV advert when it was launched on one evening. So for me, those kind of big events in advertising kind of shaped the way that I thought about advertising, and I kind of saw it as quite a glamorous, creative industry.
Scott went to university and continued his interest in advertising. He got a job in one of the largest advertising firms in the country. He became the head of marketing at Diesel 4 years ago. Has it been an easy journey?
My motto is actually embrace failure, because through failure you learn how to succeed. For me, you know, there are lots of successes that I'm very proud of, but I also am quite open when people talk to me. I'm quite open to talk about my failures as well. But I also celebrate the successes that I've had in my career, and I'm also very keen to celebrate the success of people I work with and people around me, because it's very, very important.
A decision made in his teens has led Scott to the success he has now.
Life is very difficult. When I was 14, you know, my mum worked 7 jobs so that we could have food on the table, and, you know, things were difficult for her and for us growing up. And I think it's all about choices. You know, at that stage, you make a choice. You can see an easy option and you can go, well, I can do this and it's very easy for me to make some money, but I'm going to do something wrong to do it. Or you make a choice and say, actually, I'm thinking about the long term and where my life is going to be in 40, 50 years' time. You know, I want to do something successful. I want to do something that gives back to my community. I want to be something that, or somebody that people look up to, and a role model for other people who are in my situation.
As Nathaniel said, I decided I'm going to have to do something good with my life. It may not have been easy, but all these people stuck to their plans and in the end got further than they could have imagined. Is there any reason why you should not do the same? If you're from a school or a business and would like to find out how to be involved in or volunteer for the MERLIN project, please contact us. MERLIN is funded by the London Councils.